If I had a nickel for every single time a filler episode of Naruto Shippuden had better animation and artwork than a canon episode, well, I'd probably be able to buy a couple bowls of ramen at this point. Color me impressed. This week's episode was pretty freaking good. It might be one of the best filler episodes of Naruto Shippuden, and definitely the best episode of the Chunin exam thus far. What I really love about this episode is that its strengths are actually in its brand new characters, not just the returning ones. The main group that we see from Konoha this week is Neji, Rock Lee, and Tenten, and they're going to have to be dealing with a lot of Sand Ninja, and a lot of that has to do with Shira, the brand new character who was formally introduced in last week's episode, who is a Taijutsu expert. This was hinted at in the previous episodes, and even Christian and I theorized that he's probably a Taijutsu user only, just like Rock Lee, and that is the case, and this is going to make for a perfect rivalry between the two. In fact, the episode actually opens up with a flashback sequence where Shira is training with Gaara, and this is one of the few instances in the entire series where you're going to see a lot of Taijutsu from Gaara, and it's expertly animated, the choreography looks great, and it basically just lets you know, yeah, this week's episode is going to be pretty freaking memorable. I especially liked the scene where Shira punched him so hard that Gaara had to activate his barrier, and it sent him skidding across the freaking arena. That was a great way to start the episode. So, all of our teams start heading out into the desert, and some of them are getting caught by the cactus genjutsu. They explicitly show this cactus, which is spewing these spores all over the desert, and Neji and his team end up getting trapped. But because they know how to release it, they do that, and I especially love the animation there, because it looks like stained glass all around them is cracking, and then it explodes, and then suddenly they're back in the desert, standing in front of the fortress. It's at this point that they have to start fighting, and the fighting here is pretty awesome, especially because their opponents look really great. I love the design of the Sand Ninja in this week's episode. I love the big dude who looks like the Shredder from Ninja Turtles. He even has bladed gauntlets on his arm. You have this one guy who has a big bandana that is pulled all the way over his head. And then, of course, there's Ganondorf. That's what I'm going to call him. There's this one guy with a big long nose and red hair who's able to summon multiple shuriken at once, and he looks just like Ganon from The Legend of Zelda. These guys are great, but Neji and his team completely wail on all of them, and as Neji's about to finish off the leaders, suddenly Shira appears out of nowhere and blocks all of his attacks. This is amazing. This really speaks for this guy's skills, because unlike Rock Lee, this guy's very bare bones and basic. Just, standard martial arts choreography. He's not opening any gates or anything. He's just blocking all of it with his skills, which certainly pay the ninja bills. After a little bit of trickery, Shira and his team are able to toss Neji and their team in the middle of a massive sand pit, which literally looks like a sand version of Niagara Falls. It's pretty ridiculous. It almost seems like they're not going to be able to get out of there. And I was thinking, well, they're ninja. Can't they just jump really far? Can't they use their chakra to somehow walk atop the sand? Is it like a different type of thing compared to water altogether? I'm not really sure how that works. But this is all followed by a scene where we get to learn that Shira is actually trying to help out all of the Sand Ninja, and this is his way of repaying Gaara. He wants all of them to become Chunin. However, some of the other Sand Ninja do not see eye to eye with Shira, and this is going to result in, yes, more fighting, which is also well animated. And this is also a really good formal introduction to the characters of Shira's team. I love Yomi, I love Sen, I think they're great. Yomi is one of the more interesting members of the group because, one, her design is just so cute and adorable, but she has this ability where she's able to see off of water droplets in the desert and actually look at the reflection and magnify images, and that's pretty unique in and of itself, but they actually use this against her in the battle. And then there is Sen, who really reminds me of Tamari a lot. An older version of Tamari, and that's mostly because she looks a lot like her. She's from Hidden Sand, and she also has these tiny little fans, which may or may not be related to Tamari. I'd love to see some sort of connection there, but they end up fighting against this other group of Sand Ninja, the same group we saw before, and some other interesting guys, like this guy who has a gourd ninja mask, and this other guy who has these puppet arms on his back, and it leads to an intense action scene where eventually Rock Lee and the group suddenly appear from out of nowhere, escaping from the sand pit, and are able to save Shira. They were actually able to escape because of Tenten, because she has all those scrolls, and she actually has some interesting tools in there. Not just weapons meant for death, but she actually has this big, ridiculously almost cartoon-sized ladder, which allows them to escape. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Naruto Shippuden? This was really surprising. Like, I did not expect this episode to be as good as it was. I'm actually kind of floored by the quality of it, which is pretty amazing. And the thing that still floors me the most is the new characters. I think they're just so cool. I love them. They have their own cool backstories that I want to learn about, especially Shira. That's a character that I think is going to be one hell of a standout. And what's even more interesting is this is only a small selection of the new characters who have been introduced. They don't even do anything with Fu, the Seven-Tails Jinchuriki this week, and even the other people from Hidden Grass. I still want to see the Pompadour Ninja. I can't wait to see what that guy is going to be all about. But the fighting choreography and the action this week was great. It really felt like a good old-school classic episode of Naruto, and it really started to feel like the Chunin exams with all these different characters fighting against each other. And I've already said it before, but I just love the design of these characters. You know, there are some that are definitely a lot more distinct than others, especially when they show that flashback scene the night before the exam where you see Shira talking to all the other Sand Ninja. Some of them definitely look a little more flashier than the others, and they're the ones that you see the most. And I'm glad, because they're all just really cool looking, and they're so devious. And my guess is that the group, the guy who looks like Shredder from Ninja Turtles, he's maybe a part of the group that's trying to oppose Gaara. They might be like a part of the group that's trying to assassinate him from the inside, which is probably why they don't see eye to eye with Shira, because he really loves Gaara. Gaara's like his best bud, and you know, they want him to get out of the way. Maybe that's what's going to happen. I don't know. All I know is this week's episode was great. It was just freaking-tastic. I'm really glad that it involved a little bit of Rock Lee and Neji as well, because they're really awesome characters, and this is like an excuse to finally get more Rock Lee action, because frankly, at this point, at the end of the series, Rock Lee doesn't really do too much, and this is kind of an opportunity to use all of these side characters in the Chunin exam in a really interesting way, and sort of give them like their final send-off, despite the fact that it does take place before their Chunin and before the war and when Naruto even comes back. Still, this was a great episode that honestly, if you're a Naruto fan, you need to check it out. Whether you've been following the manga version or the anime version, this was just a solid piece of entertainment. It wasn't a perfect episode. There were a few moments where the animation and the artwork was a little wonky, like when Neji and Rock Lee and his team were captured by the quicksand, and a few other moments after that. But despite that, this was a really high-quality episode of Naruto, which just makes me wish all the canon episodes could have choreography like that. I just think it would be awesome. So I like this episode, a little weird in some spots, but still, this was an incredibly entertaining of the series that Naruto fans are going to love. So I'm going to give this week's episode a 5 out of 5. I really liked it. Check it out, Naruto fans. Good stuff. Thank you guys for watching my review. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and like the video. And before you guys leave, please tell me what you thought about this week's action-packed episode of Naruto Shippuden. Do you have a favorite new character from the Chunin exams? What do you want to see from this brand new filler arc? Now remember guys, if you have not subscribed to our channel, you can do that by clicking on the channel icon right up here. Make sure to also follow us on social media like Facebook and on Twitter, and also check out the third episode of our brand new video podcast show, The Powerful Nerdcast. It'll be at the very end of this video. Thank you guys for watching. Super Kami Guru 9000 out.